Welcome back to my channel. Aldis fires Drew McIntyre out of the building backstage, WWE SmackDown breakdown, as we dive deep into one of the most explosive and unexpected backstage confrontations to ever shake the blue brand and leave the entire WWE Universe buzzing with tension, disbelief, and non-stop speculation. What unfolded between Aldis and Drew McIntyre wasn't just a heated argument or a simple misunderstanding. It was a moment that revealed the raw emotions, frustrations, and power struggles that have been boiling beneath the surface for weeks, maybe even months, and now everything has finally erupted in a way that no one could have predicted. On a night already packed with intense matches, high-stakes storylines, and superstars hungry to prove themselves on the road to the next major pay-per-view, Drew McIntyre found himself at the center of a storm that he didn't see coming. Whether you love him, hate him, or fall somewhere in the middle, there's no denying that McIntyre has been one of the most dominant forces in WWE, a man who carries himself with pride, intensity, and a level of ambition that demands respect. But sometimes ambition pushes too far, and sometimes a man's drive to prove his worth leads him into conflict with people who have the power to shape the future of an entire brand. That is exactly what played out backstage on SmackDown, and the fallout might change everything. As the cameras captured Drew pacing backstage, with visible frustration etched across his face, it became clear that he was carrying the weight of his recent losses and controversies like a heavy chain around his neck. Every step, every glare, every clenched jaw told the story of a man who felt pushed, provoked, and cornered. His recent battles, both inside and outside the ring, have left him on edge, and his clashes with other top stars have been escalating in intensity. Rumors had already been circulating that McIntyre felt overlooked, unsupported, and misunderstood by management. Some insiders suggested he believed he deserved the spotlight, the opportunities, and the championship conversations more than anyone else on the roster. Others believed he was spiraling, letting his emotions override the calculated, disciplined warrior he built his career on. Whatever the truth was, Aldis was clearly not in the mood to negotiate, compromise, or entertain excuses. Aldis, the authoritative and no-nonsense SmackDown general manager, has been trying to establish order, discipline, and stability on the blue brand ever since stepping into his role. He's been praised for his fairness, his professionalism, and his willingness to handle conflicts directly rather than letting them spiral out of control. But on this night, the situation with Drew McIntyre reached a boiling point that Aldis could no longer ignore. When Drew stormed into the backstage area demanding answers, demanding matches, and demanding respect from everyone in sight, Aldis stepped in before things could escalate into a physical showdown with other members of the roster. What followed was a verbal confrontation that grew more intense by the second, with Drew refusing to back down and Aldis refusing to allow chaos to overshadow SmackDown's momentum. The exchange quickly caught the attention of stagehands, referees, producers, and even several superstars who peeked around corners to see what was unfolding. Drew's voice rose, fueled by anger and a sense of betrayal, while Aldis maintained a stern, controlled tone that only seemed to aggravate McIntyre further. Drew insisted he deserved better treatment, that he had carried the company through some of its darkest moments, and that management owed him more than disrespect. Aldis countered that Drew's behavior had crossed professional lines, that he had been causing unnecessary disruptions, and that his attitude was becoming a liability to the entire locker room. The tension was thick enough to be cut with a sword, and the atmosphere felt charged with a kind of electricity that precedes a storm. When Drew stepped in closer, face to face with Aldis, refusing to leave and demanding that SmackDown treat him like the star he believes himself to be, Aldis made the decision that stunned everyone watching. With the authority that only a general manager possesses, Aldis told Drew he was officially removed from the building and that if he refused to comply, consequences would be severe. Drew's eyes widened with disbelief, his pride wounded, his fury simmering just below the surface. He tried to argue, pushing back against the decision, insisting he had earned the right to be heard. But Aldis didn't waver. He stood his ground, motioned for security, and repeated his command. Security approached, hesitant but firm, ready to escort the Scottish warrior out. The entire moment felt surreal, almost cinematic, as Drew looked around at the crew and performers witnessing his humiliation. For a man of his stature, being thrown out of the building wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a direct blow to his honor, his ego, and his reputation. With clenched fists and fire in his eyes, Drew finally stepped back, realizing he had no choice but to comply. He muttered a final warning under his breath, something that hinted he wasn't done, not by a long shot, and then turned to walk out with security on each side of him. Even as he left, his presence felt enormous, like a storm pushed out of the arena, but ready to return stronger. As Drew was escorted through the corridors, the locker room buzzed with whispers and reactions. Some superstars seemed shocked, others concerned, and a few even nodded as if Aldis had done what needed to be done. Backstage politics are always complicated, full of rivalries, alliances, and grudges, and Drew's fiery personality has earned him both supporters and enemies. For weeks, tension has been brewing between McIntyre and other top names, many of whom felt he was becoming unhinged and overly aggressive. Others believed he was justified, arguing that Drew has been overlooked and underappreciated despite carrying the company during major eras, especially through the pandemic era when he stood at the forefront as a champion admired by millions. All these emotions collided into the moment Aldis made the call to eject him from the premises. Meanwhile, Nick Aldis returned to his office with a heavy yet determined expression. He knew his decision would spark debates online, fuel fan theories, and possibly ignite a new chapter in Drew's storyline. He also knew that leadership sometimes requires making unpopular choices, even if those choices risk backlash. Aldis has been trying to maintain balance on SmackDown, ensuring that rising stars get opportunities, established veterans stay focused, and backstage chaos remains controlled. By removing Drew from the building, he was sending a clear message. No superstar, no matter how accomplished or respected, is above the rules that keep the brand running smoothly. This wasn't just about Drew's outburst, it was about making sure the entire locker room understood that crossing the line of professionalism would not be tolerated. On social media, fans immediately erupted with reactions. Hashtags related to Drew and Aldis trended worldwide as people debated whether Aldis overreacted or whether Drew brought this upon himself. Some argued that it was only a matter of time before Drew snapped due to all the pressure and frustration. Others felt that Aldis had shown tremendous restraint and made the right decision. The WWE Universe thrives on drama.